YouTube world, it is Marlon Gibbons here. Thank you for joining me at Music in the Making here in the studio. As you saw by the thumbnail and the title, today I'm going to do a bit of an informal review on a piece of gear. It is the DAPPER Indie by VALETON. And what I'm going to do, how I'm going to break this down is I understand there's a large portion of you that only want to hear what a piece of gear can do when it comes to demos, reviews. And then there's the other portion that are interested in a bit of an explanation as to what it is and the different sections and so forth. I'm going to try and meet you guys in the middle. For those of you who only want to hear it, by all means, you can skip ahead. Those of you who do want to hear a bit of an explanation as to what this thing is, then stick around and we'll get it. So I'm kind of categorizing this as a guitar effects processing unit. That's not in their literature, that's just kind of my categorization of it. As you'll see when we get into it, it has quite a variation of different not just tones, but functionality and stuff that all packed into kind of one small, easy to transport unit. Looking at it from a physical standpoint, on the back we have your typical 1/4 inch in where you'd run your instrument, typically a guitar, but I suppose you can run anything you want into it. And then you have your 9-volt adapter. So down on this end you have your output, and one is just your 1/4 inch out, which you'd run to your amp in most cases. However, the headphone jack, this is pretty cool. They've designed a cab sim into the output of the headphone jack, which I think is pretty cool because obviously you're not using an amp if you're going to be using the headphone out. I thought it was a cool consideration just to kind of help with that sense of authenticity. Now, I don't think you can change that cab sim or fine-tune it or anything like that, but just the fact that it's there in a headphone output is pretty cool. The headphone output also functions as a line out, and in their literature they do say you can run it into, say, your DAW for recording or into a PA in a live performance. Now, I personally wouldn't be running this into a PA, but I have seen lots of situations, for example, a one-man band kind of thing where everything runs through a PA. But I just think it was kind of a cool consideration anyway. And of course you can throw your cans on and not disturb anyone. So yeah, that's kind of the backside of this thing. All right, so there's 5 different sections. All of the sections can be used at the same time if you wanted, or any combination of each section. There's a built-in tuner. The first 4 on-off switches, if held, have a secondary function to each, specific to each section. The first section they've called ambient, which is really just your reverbs. There's a plate, a hall, and a room reverb, and designated by a little switch to the left of the pots. The pots, which are your parameters, there's reverb, tone, and decay under ambient. Reverb being how wet, how much of the signal do you want. Tone affects a various band of frequency depending on where you dial it in. And decay, so the size of the space that you're creating. The second they've called echoes, which is really just your delays. So delays, analog, tape, and reverse. Again, with the switch to the left of the pots, they have delay, regeneration, and time. Not unlike reverb, just basically how wet do you want the signal, how much of it. Regen, so how many times does that delay occur before the tail. And then time, so the space between those delays. The third one they've called liquid effects, and that's essentially just your modulation. So you have chorus, phaser, and tremolo, which are all pretty classic, pretty obvious. And then the parameters, there's only 2 for those, which are depth and rate. So your speed and how much of that effect you want. The fourth section is, they've called it fuzz wall, essentially your fuzz. And there's 4 parameters there. There's your volume, so your output. And then they have a low and high, so kind of a boost and cut under low and high frequencies. I'm not sure where that split happens, but then the fourth is fuzz, so how much of that drive do you want. Fifth section is indie drive, which is just your typical drive. And again, it's the same as fuzz in that it has output level, you have your bass and treble, and then gain. How much do you want to drive that? So yeah, that's kind of the 5 sections. As I said, you can use them all or just a couple. And also, as I said, they have secondary functions. So, for example, under echoes, delays. If you press and hold the on-off switch, then you can use your foot to tap the timing of the delay. Just another feature under these different ones. The fourth one is the tuner, so press and hold under the fuzz section. There's a little LED that will show you tune your guitar, and it puts it into bypass mode. Okay, so really quickly, this time we're going line out of the unit itself straight into my interface. There's no processing, no compression or EQ or processing any other kind. What you hear is the unit itself. Right now there's nothing engaged, so you're just hearing the guitar dry, de-eyed. Okay, so let me shut up and let's hear what this thing can do. So that is the Dapper Indie by VALETON. I will put a link in the description. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that, just for you to check out and read up on, read a bit more. I would say with this, as with anything that I demo on this channel, do your research and don't just take my word for it. Get as much information on it as you can. If you can rent one or even borrow one from a friend, that's even better. It's obviously going to sound a little different in your hands for a million different reasons. I tried to give a basic example of what it could do. So in the opening video, I put a Shure SM57 in front of my PV Classic 30. So everything you heard there was mic'd through an amp and straight into the board. And then, of course, when we looked at the different sections, that was line in, so through the headphone jack. And again, just trying to keep it basic and give you the functionality. I'm not a hot screaming guitar player to begin with, if that wasn't obvious already. So to that point, it might sound a lot better in your hands. But that's my look at the Dapper Indie. I hope you enjoyed it. Any questions, throw them down below, and if I don't know them, I will try and get the answers to them. But I would encourage you first to hit the link and read up on it. There's a lot more information on it on the website than there is from what I put in this video. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch the video. Please hit like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe, and we'll catch you next week. Cheers.